Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 266, presented by Prize Picks and Game Time Tickets. My name is Conor Ryan, and once again, we are joined by the esteemed, the knowledgeable, Ty Anderson of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Ty, what's going on?
Not scruffy, not nerf herder, just chilling.
I would never do that.
I appreciate it. How we doing? This is exciting. This is the final episode that we are doing forever, because I'm leaving now. Until the games get real and the finish line is in sight here. So it's exciting. I think we're getting into like the true nitty-gritty of the season beginning here.
Yes, the Bruins are getting to the finish line, thankfully, at the end of preseason. 7 games, way too much. I'm ready to get this show on the road here. But as the Bruins are getting ready for the finish line of the preseason, there is no finish line in sight quite yet, Ty, for Jeremy Swayman and the ongoing contract talks, which I don't know about you, but going into this past week, like the season opening press conference on Monday at the Garden, you're like, all right, like getting a little close here, like a little too close for comfort. Maybe, he's not going to be available the first week, but they'll sort things out. Nothing really to be too worried about. I think that's maybe changed a little bit from, and again, this is the latest in a long line of podcasts, so I don't think we need to go through the entire history of what has gone on over this past week, but best way to sum it up, the vibes are not great right now, I would say, between Jeremy Swayman and the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, it's hard to feel good right now, and I think that, listen, information changes, opinions change when you have more information. And all summer long, you were hearing from people, at least I was, internally, like, no worries, it's going to get done. We're going to find a landing spot. It's going to get done. It's going to get done. And then I talk with Swayman in August, and he tells me, yeah, I'm confident it gets done. It's going to get done. Just a matter of when. And here we are now. We have one preseason game left. We have the season opener in 5 days down in Florida, and he's not signed yet. And I think the tenor is what concerns me. It hit a point this week where I was like, ooh, that's not good. Like that, and you could tell that Cam Neely was kind of waiting for someone to ask him about it, to the point where he was getting involved in questions that were to Don Sweeney, which is always a sign that, he wants to say something.
Guys.
and then you have sort of what I find funny in all this, and please, this is not to knock people like Frank Zaravelli or Spittin' Chicklets, but the people that have received the information from Swayman's side of things, which is fine. That's how these things operate. I understand that. But then to take the moral high ground of, we don't negotiate through the media, and then the next day, hey, the Bruins only offered 62.7. Okay, well, who's getting that number then? Who's giving that number out? Because it's not the Bruins if they just said 64 the day before. So it's just getting ugly, right? And that's, I think, what your big concern is, I think, with all of this is like, it needs to remain professional, and it needs to remain, with the same goal in mind. I think the Bruins, frustration finally boiled over this past week.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is a fascinating, this entire saga, whenever it gets done, wherever Swayman ends up, whatever he ends up signing, it's going to be fascinating in terms of just the amount of back and forth, the amount of, I think, insight this negotiation has probably provided to, either fans or anyone in terms of just how these things operate, with stuff getting leaked through the media, who's hearing what, all the back channel conversation, how the market changes, how I think Swayman and his representatives are approaching the market. There's so many different factors that have made this not just the run-of-the-mill contentious negotiation. Even like Nylander, right, which that one was really drawn out. He was a pretty established top 6 great player by then. And like Jeremy Swayman has all the makings of a future franchise goalie. There's not been, there are questions about Swayman's workload, stuff like that, but I don't think any of us have seen like a point here where we're like, oh, like, I don't know, like it remains to be seen, like, maybe he will flame out. Like, I think we all are in more or less agreement. I don't know about you, that like you sign him to an 8-year deal, he's probably going to continue to get better and better. Like, is that a top 5 goalie? We'll see, but a top 10, like, I don't think we've seen anything that would dispel that notion. It's just, where do they bridge the gap right now in terms of these contract talks? Because as you said, it just feels like it's boiled over, and it's concerning because when you hear these, latest reports, whatever, 64 million, 62.4, whatever the number that Saravelli had, right? And then Swayman's asking now for 8.5. They're pretty close, right? In terms of the latest reports are that you would think you'd be able to bridge the gap here, but can you get over the sour sentiment that comes from these contract talks? Can you move past that and digest it? It's something that Brad Marchand mentioned of like, listen, it's not fun going through these negotiations. Tough things are said, but you sign it and a weight is lifted off your shoulders and a weight is lifted off the team's shoulders and you move on from it. And that is more or less what the standard, I think, procedure is for any of these players, that even in the moment, whether it's arbitration, the back and forth, the contract talks, stepping back for a little while, it sucks. It's not great to go through that as you're trying to preach what your worth is based against what the team that's paying and signing your checks, what they think it is. It's not fun, but you get it done and you move forward. I think the concern probably is not like how far apart they are in money now, like where they are philosophically or anything like that. It's, can you move past this? Because from, Louis Gross's comments to, we'll touch on a little bit later, but from what Jeremy Swayman mentioned, during that Amazon series months ago, like, is he wired in a way that you can't, are the bridges burnt right now? I think that is the biggest concern right now.
100%. And I think that sort of, you look at where they are and like they should be close. And the other thing that I think is important to note here from the standpoint of like, I'm very quick not to plant my flag in any one camp, because I think it's not that simple. Nothing is ever that simple, but it's like, I understand why Swayman wants to be paid. I get it. He's 25. He had a great playoff. I think he was the best goalie in the playoffs. Doesn't matter if the team didn't go as far as they should have. I think he was the best goalie in the playoffs. And so when you look at that, it's like, yeah, you want to get paid, but sometimes timing is everything. I talked about this the other day. I did a podcast with Matt at Matt Dolph, 985sportshub.com, the Sports Hub Underground. We talked about this, and I said, a couple of years ago, I talked to a player who had a career year, and he was entering UFA status. The biggest problem, though, he was entering UFA status in a flat cap era. And he's like, I wish I was going to be a free agent 2 years from now because I could really make some money, But like, he understood timing is everything, right? And if you don't have timing on your side, you kind of have to settle sometimes. And it's not what you want, but it's what you kind of have to do. And I think that's kind of where Swayman is. Like, he's been great, but the sample is small. 132 career games, 125 career starts. One playoff run as the uncontested starter, essentially. And so it's like, seventh place Vezina finish. You won a Jennings in tandem with the Vezina winner, Lena Solmark. You guys were a great 1-2 that year. But you're not Sorokin yet. You're not Shesterkin yet. You're not Hellebuck. Like, so it's tough to have that comparison of, you want to be a top 5 goalie. And listen, like, to your point, that contract may age well. It may age very well for the Bruins. But it may also not. Like, if you're not the guy that you think you are, and you do drop down over time to maybe the 7th or 8th best goalie in hockey, well, then guess what? You're getting paid your proper amount. And so I just think that, like, the timing is not on his side. So I understand the case that he's making for himself and that his agency is making for their client. But, like, I don't know. I see both sides of it in that respect. And so I'm not like, well, how dare Swayman? And I'm not like, how dare the Bruins? But I think if either side digs in, they're being a little short-sighted here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's something, too, where you look at just where this team is at and how they are a win-now roster that, if Swayman's signed and he's ready to go October 8th, you're ready to roll. I think you looked at, like, especially that preseason game on Tuesday where, like, the forwards were all clicking pretty well. The D-core was, firing the puck, getting involved in offense. You like what you see there when those guys are executing. You just need that stability in net. And that's why I think it, even going into this past week, if the Bruins open the year with Korpisalo for a week or so, you're like, all right, it's not ideal, not what you're looking for, but you can, stay afloat for now. But this team, as you say, short-sighted. It hurts Jeremy Swayman to not be out there right now. It hurts him if he's trying to hold out for a whole year, if it gets to that point. And it hurts the Bruins the longer he's not out there either, because one, it helps the team at this moment. But even if it's, things really go to shit and it's a trade request or anything like that, the market's just not tenable for you to get probably a good return. Like, no one wins in that regard. And there's people who are like, just trade up now, whatever, screw it, get whatever. One, remains to be seen what you'd even get, who's available, who could take on whatever that contract is that he wants. It's kind of like the Brendan Ayuk thing. That was half, like, again, changing sports, but it's one thing to trade for a guy, but also have to give him the money on top of it. It's kind of, you have to, handle two different things in that situation. But regardless of what you would get, of unprotected first, a top prospect, it still hurts what you've built right now with the expectation you have a guy like Jeremy Swayman in net. Because as much as people look at this Bruins and it's like, Bob Senza can fix anyone and the D-core is great and all those things, Bruins were 22nd last year in high danger chances against at even strength play. They gave up a lot of quality looks, and they were bailed out quite a bit by Swayman and Ullmark, who were 4th and 7th in the league last year in expected goals saved. Swayman was 4th with 18.4. He saved 18 goals, bailed you out, which over the span of 82 games is quite a few wins and losses, considering how narrow kind of the margins are. So I think people have to realize that even if you maybe disagree with the stance Swayman is taking and his representatives and what his ask is, all those things, you don't want to cut your nose out to spite your face, right? In terms of moving him just for the sake of doing it now. Because, like, he is still, I think, a key part of what you're trying to build here. And a trade request or anything like that would be the worst case scenario, regardless of what you get back.
Yeah, and quickly going back to those numbers that you're mentioning, last year, Linus alone, I think, was plus 15 in terms of goals saved above expected. And Jonas Korpisalo was minus 16. So you're talking about a 32-goal swing right there. Now,
that's not great.
I do believe that we are in agreement that the Bruins can fix Korpisalo to a certain degree. But it's like what I've said before, and I don't know if I've said it on here or not, but, like, you want him to be a supercharged number 2.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, wow, if he's a number 2, that's great. If he's a workhorse number 1, that's not great. That's not ideal. And so, yeah, to your point, like, you got, like, the team is built to have Swayman. We've talked about that. We've acknowledged that. They're built to have him. And so I'm curious, and Elliot Friedman wrote about this, and I think it's a great point that we sometimes lose sight of in all this. When does it come from the players saying to Swayman, nah, get your bag, man, to, hey, man, when is this going to be over? Because, like, we need you. You're a very vital piece of this operation. When does that happen? Does it happen the first time that the Bruins have to lean on Korpisalo for, a 4-7, making 3 starts in 6 days, whatever it is, like, or do they survive? I think that is, and we're looking way ahead here, I know, but
right.
Like, that's the real sort of interesting month you have in front of you here. Now, let's say this drags out until Thanksgiving. Okay, what if they're great? And what if Korpisalo is a 922? What happens then? Or the doomsday, what if they're bad? The guys behind Korpisalo are bad, and they're 5-11, or something horrible. Okay, now is that 8 million, 8.5? Now is that 9.5? What do you do there? And so, given those unknowns on both sides, I would want this done by opening night. And think about the lift you can give your locker room. You walk in pregame, sunrise, they're raising the banner, you're already pissed off, and they go, hey, by the way, guys, Bulldog's back. And wouldn't that just be the ultimate lift for that team?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, I assume you saw the behind the beat, the season opener, where they had them giving the speeches at the start of training camp, and Don Sweeney specifically mentions that they're opening the year with that game against Florida, and it's clearly like that is on their mind in terms of that being a statement game and wanting to prove something for the team that's kicked you out of the playoffs the last 2 years. So no, I agree that, and even if he's not ready for that first game, and it'll ramp up, having him back in the fold, this is a guy that, it's also why these negotiations are rough now in terms of the optics and how I think he's kind of taken a hit because this is a guy that is loved in that locker room in terms of just how competitive he is, how, I think woven into the fabric of the team is, how much he embraces this city. I mean, I think I mentioned it to you after the press conference on Monday. Look at where Swayman was a few months ago. Like, the Bruins lose game 6 and he's got cheers, coming off the ice. And, he's mentioned it time and time again how much he loves the city. And now he's got people who are clamoring to trade him, or, even if he signs, he's going to have that scrutiny. And maybe that also is a byproduct of the contract he's going to sign. And that comes with the territory of being a number one goalie in Boston. So I'm not saying like it's unfair or it's unfortunate or all these things, but it is going to change some of his perception. But just having him in that room where he's valued amongst that group, it would be a tremendous lift for a guy that, again, this team, I think, as currently constituted, is a really good team. I like the way they've kind of built their team, but your ceiling is severely stunted if you don't have Jeremy Swayman in net for the long haul, especially when the games really start mattering in the spring.
Yeah, and I think that you look at where they are right now, right? Like, with Swayman, are they better than Toronto? Yes or no?
I would say yes.
Are they, I'm not going to say better, are they on the same footing as Tampa? If you want to say better, you can say better too, but...
Then Tampa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're better than... I think Tampa is extremely top heavy. So I would be proven wrong when they go on a crazy run this year with this weird ass like roster they've constructed. But yes. Tampa, no. But
well, that's... And so I guess the roundabout point that I'm trying to make is that if you have Swayman, I think you're better than Toronto. And I think that you are more equipped to handle Andrei Vasilevsky, who's been very good against you when healthy. And as you mentioned, they're very top heavy. Okay, well, you don't really have all that scoring right now, but you have the great goaltending. So that, again, that puts you on more equal footing. I think that if you don't have Swayman, I think Toronto is more of a coin flip because you've always had goaltending over them. Okay, well, what if it's a coin flip now and goaltending? And they have Matthews and Marner and Nyes, who I thought was great last year for them in the playoffs. Yeah. And they have Nylander, and they have Tavares, transitioning into a third line role where he might be a better weapon. Like, again, it puts you on more equal footing. But if you have the goalie, you are in that, you have the advantage, in my opinion. And so there's that part of it. I think that's a huge part of this for sure. And, you were alluding to it, and I think it's true. Like, I think you want to avoid this becoming ugly to the point where the fans are kind of in this corner now where they're like, you know what? Swayman better be the best goalie in the world or we're going to hate him. It's like, oh, right. I hate that. I hate that possibility because that's just like, nobody wins then. Nobody wins. Yeah. If it's a zero-sum game of he's got to be the best goalie in the world and he's got to win a Stanley Cup, then guess what? You're probably going to be pretty pissed off. Like, the odds are not in your favor, unfortunately, in that regard.
Yeah. And I think when you look back now, and obviously there's that new Amazon series that dropped, I think on Friday, and one of them features Swayman. And of course, like, all this stuff gets leaked before it even drops. So I would have liked to actually watch the series to see.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
It would have been nice instead of getting just like walls of text. But
I hate media embargoes. I hate them.
Yes.
So 20 people get to watch it and tweet about it, but no one else. Okay, great. I'll just skip it then. Thanks.
Right, exactly. So again, I have not watched it because I've got all the Swayman content apparently I need. But when you look at his comments, right, about, the fact that he wrote down all that was said during arbitration, had a checklist for it, the fact that he expressed doubt of, whether he'd be back at the end of the year. And again, maybe some of that also factors in, that's before the Olmark trade and all that kind of uncertainty. So that probably plays into it. But I think especially looking at like the arbitration and where that exactly falls into things. Are you surprised that it has gotten to that point when I think we've seen, how Swayman operates? This is a guy that is hyper competitive, has a very long memory, thrives off of, I think, people doubting him. That's why he went from, a relatively unheralded prospect, lands at Maine, and has kind of proven people wrong every step of the way. That being said, knowing kind of just how he, has channeled that emotion, that motivation, are you surprised that it's gotten to this point where what is a contentious negotiation, but part of the business, has put him and the Bruins in a spot where, hell, we don't really know if he's going to be back in Boston, come either Tuesday or a few months down the road from now?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Because I felt like we had moved past all of that. One of the things that I asked him when I caught up with him back in August was, are you in a better place mentally now than you were a year ago, knowing the arbitration, how that affected you and how you felt about the team? Are you in a better place now than you were a year ago? And he said, absolutely, 100%. And so to kind of have these things still lingering or having some of that lingering, it's like, all right, well, that's when I look at your agent and I say, did you not do a great job of preparing your client for what arbitration is? There are people who don't want to go to arbitration because they know what it's like. So the fact that he's surprised by that is a little bit, I don't want to say alarming, that's too strong, but like, all right, there was a player. People can connect the dots here, honestly. There was a player about 6 years ago on the Bruins who was set to go to arbitration. I talked with that player and I said, are you going to go to arbitration? And their response was, I sure hope not, because they know that it's not a fun thing to go through. They didn't want to go through with it. They wanted to get a deal done before then. And then sure enough, they did. But it's like, people know it's not a good thing to go through. They don't want to go through it. And so to go through it and then be stunned, it's kind of like the shock Pikachu face right now, where it's like, well, what do you expect? What do you expect, man? They weren't going to tell you how great they are. They come in low. I'm sorry. They come in low. You come in high. Guess what side they're going to argue for? The low side. Like,
Right.
So that part's a little annoying to me because it's like, you should have known that was going to be the case. So if they want their pound of flesh for that, I mean, what are we doing here? That's how I feel about that.
Right. It's even like I think Frederick was supposed to have his a few days after Swayman's, right? Or was it this past year? And it got resolved. I think it was like 20 minutes before it was actually going to happen. It's like going to like an amusement park ride and you like are waiting in line wondering what the ride is, and then you see like the big loop-de-loop, like people screaming as the roller coaster flies overhead, and you're like, no, I'm good. Never mind. Like
all set.
that's what's coming during arbitration hearing. Like the writing is on the wall of what's going in if you go through those doors. It's not like it's one of those like rides where it's like can it be like Park the Mine ride? Like if that like had like flowers and like a bunny rabbit out front, and then you go inside and it is a hellish mine, that's messed up. That's not what arbitration is. There is a skeleton. There is like creepy shit all out front. Shout out Canopy Lake Park. Like you know what you're getting yourself into. So is it just not getting prepared for it? I believe like you get to see like essentially what like the other party is going to say, like almost like a mission statement that you can see what is going to be the talking points going into these things. Which is probably why like Frederick and a lot of guys probably get to that point and you're like, oh, fuck this, let's meet in the middle. Like more or less it is not going to be a pleasant experience. Even if maybe you win arbitration, you don't, as you said, you don't all of a sudden get way above what you're looking for. You still get, it's above expectation, but
right.
I still don't feel great because they still said I was lacking in this, and this, right? Like, again, there's a reason why a lot of these guys do not go through with the actual hearing because it sucks.
Yeah, and the other part of it that annoys me, based on the quote that's been shared from the Amazon thing, is that they said that I wasn't reliable in the playoffs. Okay, you weren't. Like, or I don't want to say reliable, but you weren't proven. No, neither one of Jeremy Swayman or Linus Ullmark were established in the playoffs prior to 2023 or 2024. I'm sorry. And then Swayman proved that wrong. But it was, Connor, the biggest storyline going into that playoff run was you got two great goalies, but neither one of them has really taken it and run with it in the playoffs. Can that change? And then sure enough, it did. But like, I can't begrudge the 2023 Bruins for saying that to him because it was true. It was true to that point that neither Swayman nor Ullmark had really been like a playoff ace. And, I get it. They didn't put him in a great spot in 2023, putting in game 7. We've acknowledged that. We've talked about that in the past. But even go back to 2022 against Carolina, they could win at home, but not on the road. And I think that goes beyond Swayman, but like, I don't know. It's I don't think that's an unfair criticism. Like, if you want $9 million, don't you kind of want to say, like, okay, we know this guy's going to be good in the playoffs. Like, that's kind of a thing that, I don't know, you want to know. And now they know it, but I just don't like him saying that back then. It's like, because that was reality at that point in time. That was reality.
Yeah, no, it is. How this thing gets resolved remains up in the air, but ideally, again, as we've said before, the money seems to be close. So you just hope that everyone kind of move forward and cast this aside as what business is, even if maybe there are still some hurt feelings and all that inevitably does sprout up in these negotiations. So that was our, let's see, 25-minute Jeremy Swayman segment to open this show.
I'm so sick of these.
I know,
I just
and
want
it's gonna and it's going to get worse. I thought like we were nearing the end of it. I think the last podcast we did, it was like we had 10 minutes talking about it. Then this week, it's just all the way back. It's like probably the top story in the NHL right now. So not great. But Ty, before we move on to what else is going on with the Bruins, let's take a quick break. Hear from our good friends over at Prize Picks. Fall is finally here. You know what that means. Football season is back. And there's so many ways for you to get in on the action and win up to 100 times your cash on Prize Picks, as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level on the gridiron, ice, court, and much more. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. PrizePicks is also the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks makes sure that your picks are still live. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks, especially during football season. This week, I'm picking Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. It's really that easy. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Now, let's get back to the show. Shout out once again to our good friends over at PrizePicks. All right, Ty. Beyond the Jeremy Swayman drama, we had a preseason game on Thursday at Quebec City. And let me tell you, it wasn't fun, whether it was the actual product itself, whether it was we had to watch it on a laptop, which I don't enjoy at all. I think you talked about how you don't even like Thursday Night Football, where you got to stream it from your phone to the TV, all those things. This one was even worse, where it's just like on like Bruins.com.
It's on a website. Hell on earth.
It was. The whole game was not great. The Bruins, I think, approximately had 4 shots on goal for like most of the game. It felt like. Not a lot of guys moved the needle. Is there anything worth taking away from that game at all? Other than please don't keep on showing games on your website because no one likes it.
Oh, it's trash. And I'm of this. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the Bostonian in me, but like I'm just stubborn. And if you say, "Oh, you got to watch it on this," I'm gonna go, "No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go do something else because I don't like that. I don't like the way that you're proposing that idea. I don't want to do it that way." Just really stubborn, idiotic behavior. But no, I think the biggest thing that I take away from that game is that twofold. Fabian Lysell had to be better. And it's one of these things where if you get sent down and you're pissed about being sent down and you get called back up and you do a media availability and you say, "How did you feel when you got sent down?" And you said, "I felt like I was just getting started. I felt like I was getting better and better. So I guess I'm going to have to try to make it hard on them to send me down." You got to do better than 1 shot on goal and a -2. Like, I'm sorry. I know it's not perfect, but if they're demanding that out of you, you got to show it in some fashion. And I thought he had a couple of good looks on the power play, but overall, just not enough energy, not enough pace. This is a guy who, when his game is going, a lot of speed. I'm not like a lot of people, I'm not throwing the towel in on him, but like, I thought that was a great chance for a response and I didn't see it. And that's a little frustrating. If you're gonna, I would say, passive aggressively complain about your utilization and getting sent down. Like you got to come up with your head on fire and go from there. And I didn't really feel like he did that in that game. And the other thing is Korpisalo. Thought he was great in the first period, but some leaks start happening, and it's like this is what we're kind of talking about. Like you can't say to him, you got to be Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. You got to bail us out for 60 minutes. Like that's just not reasonable to ask out of him, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, for Lysell, same thing where even if, we've all mentioned how high his ceiling is and how great it would be for the Bruins to, have a guy at that age, at that contract, value-wise, with that skill in a featured spot, it'd be great. But you got to show something there when you're already kind of clawing your way back up to make a legitimate case for yourself, and it just wasn't there. Same thing with Korpisalo. I thought, Max Jones made his debut. I thought, even going into camp, he was a guy that probably was like the leader in the clubhouse in terms of a lock for that fourth line. Remains to be seen how it all kind of plays out moving forward, but I did like some of the physicality he provided. You mentioned like playing with your hair on fire. Max Jones has said that I think twice now to describe his game.
Yeah.
And I do like kind of as he gets kind of
Does he have a shaved head too?
I think he does. He does not. No,
if he does, that's why. It's always on fire.
But you look at just, even if he was a little bit rusty, which I think is what Montgomery mentioned on Friday, the speed, the pace, the physicality, you put him with Mark Kastelik, who will not rest until he gets involved in every single scrum out there on the ice. You look at Johnny Beecher, who's been, I think, as advertised in terms of his skating, obviously. Even like Cole Koepke, what he's provided. And I think, again, you look at a guy who's made the most of the opportunity with guys not being available. And a guy like Koepke, I think, has done that. I think there's a lot to like of where that fourth line can function and what their identity can be this year, because it's physicality, I think, is the name of the game on that grouping, but they have a lot of speed. I think they have a lot of guys that can really put puck carriers under duress this year. I really like how I think once you find the right pieces, what that line can become this year.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's been something that I do think Don Sweeney, and listen, that's not going to help you win a Stanley Cup most years, but I think he's always been really good at identifying fourth line types, players who can play with some speed, some energy, some tenacity. You kind of look at all the moves they've made on their bottom six over the last, I would say half decade, if not a little bit longer. They have an eye for that kind of talent and how to best deploy those kind of players. And, it all comes down to, okay, what does it look like above those players? But yeah, I think the way their fourth line plays this year, I mean, you got a great mix of size, of speed, of overall reach when it comes to, pinning teams in their own zone and grinding them down, drawing a penalty at the end of that, or a great scoring chance, getting an ozone face-off, and then boom, or forcing icing. Okay, now here comes Pastrnak, Lindholm, and Zacha. Have fun with that, guys. Like that's what you want. It's got to be like I always say, the term I use is tenderizing. Your fourth line has to tenderize the opposition to make it easier to score goals for your skill guys. And we're definitely going to get that, I think, out of this team this year, honestly.
Yeah. And I think when you look at other things to take note of, one area of concern, I'd probably say right now, Matt Poitras, still day-to-day with an undisclosed injury. He took a hit at the very end of regulation, I believe, from Rasmus Ristolainen, who enjoys doing that at a repeated rate. So he hasn't played since, I think, last Saturday was his last appearance. Montgomery mentioned on Friday, it remains up in the air whether or not he's available on Tuesday for the season opener. And just a tough setback for a guy that I think was something we touched on last week. For a guy that has the option of going down to Providence, through those first three games, looked like a guy who is ready for NHL reps in terms of his poise, added strength on the puck, now his versatility of being able to play on the wing. Just a tough setback for a guy that seemed like he was one of the few guys, especially amongst this younger group, that was ready to roll right out of the gate this year.
Yeah, it's really difficult, right? Because I think you see the promise, and then I mean the biggest question mark that I have is like physicality. Like, can he hang for a full season? Is his body at that level yet? And that's why, I've been saying, like, I was said all summer, I think he starts in Providence because I think they want to get him up to speed and get his body right and all that. Because, like, I thought he was getting worn down before he suffered that injury. And, texting with people, talking with people, I was told, like, he's beat up right now. Like, he's doing his best, but he's beat up. And so if that's still an issue for him, I'd rather him start in Providence where he's not getting NHL physicality every night. And I know, listen, you're going to have to face it at some point, but does it have to be right away after a major shoulder operation, or can you take some time here? And so I do wonder what happens from here if that injury maybe spooks them into thinking that he's got to start in Providence. You got to, try to protect him a little bit, save him from himself if you have to, because I think leading up to that, I think he was playing with such determination that made you go, oh, he's going to make this team. Like, he's going to make it. And so maybe there's an element here of saving him from himself in the name of, career longevity or his ability to help the Bruins now versus, 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we'll see what exactly plays out there, when his availability will be, and what the next steps are for Poitras moving forward. Ty, before we wrap this one up, let's take another quick break, hear from our friends over at Game Time Tickets.
The summer is coming to an end, but rejoice, sports fans, because football season is back. And if you're a Patriots fan and want to make your way to Gillette Stadium, you got to go with Game Time Tickets. There's nothing better than posting up with your buddies at a tailgate, working the grill, knocking back a few beers, and taking in that crisp fall air over at Foxborough. With the new Patriots season upon us, now is your time to see Drake May in action, and Game Time Tickets will get you the best seats at the best prices to get you into the stadium. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace that makes getting NFL tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to kickoff. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets. There's no shortage of options when using the Game Time app. Game Time Tickets app makes it easy to sort through which specific game or other event you want to attend and shows you the best spots available to take in the action. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And with the Patriots home opener against the Seahawks just weeks away, Game Time Picks has you covered. Game Time Tickets also has you covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, including event cancellation protection, 24-hour returns guarantee, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Now, let's get back to the show.
Shout out once again to our good friends over at Game Time Tickets. All right, Ty. The Bruins season starts on Tuesday. We will both be down in Florida, going to the Rainforest Cafe, catching some rays, watching a hockey game. It's all going to be great. Where are you at right now as just maybe a brief preview of where you think this team is at? And is it tough to really gauge the ceiling of this team or what you can expect when you don't know exactly if your franchise goalie is in place as kind of the last line of defense out there? Your mic is... Uh-oh.
I was muted because I was sneezing. Sorry about
goodness.
that. No, I'm great. I'm golden. No, it's hard. It's hard to judge them because I think, like you, I think they are the best team in their division. I think we're in agreement. If they have Jeremy Swayman, this has the makings of a really good regular season team. Keep in mind that they were in the President's Trophy race until game, 77, 78. And that was with a patchwork roster of guys that were on 1-year deals and veterans kind of trying to, keep working in this league. And so they're a good team. Their foundation's good, but it comes back to the goaltending. If they don't have the goaltending, I think that, as we alluded to earlier, we talked about earlier, like they're closer to being second place, third place, maybe a wild card team if they go through a slump on the power play or they suffer an injury to one of their key guys for a month. Like, it could be hard for them. And so it's hard to get a full gauge of what they can be. Assuming that you get number one on this roster, I think conference final is a fair, maybe a little bit eager expectation, but I don't know if teams go out and spend the money they did on the guys they spent money on with the expectation that they're going to remain a neutral. They're going to get to the second round. That's going to be good enough. Like, I think there's a legit reason or internally to believe. And Cam Neely said this multiple times. Stanley Cup contender. They believe they're a contender. So, okay, let's hold them to that. I think if you're in the final 8, you're a true contender. So let's see if they get there.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement in terms of it's tough right now to gauge where exactly they are if they don't have Swayman, but you look at how they've fortified areas of their roster. You look at getting a guy like Lindholm, what he provides. I think maybe the most underrated part of his game. We know he's great, two-way centerman, should be able to have his scoring bounce back a little bit with a season next to Pastrnak. But I think him on the power play at the bumper position, I think adds another element that you kind of need for a power play that really kind of regressed as the year went on. Struggled against Florida. I think they were 1 for 16 in that series against Florida on the power play. So I think he helps. Obviously, Zadorov brings both the physicality and the puck movement. Really like just their whole decor. I'm not concerned about their decor at all, regardless of how they kind of mix and match those three pairs. I think there's a lot to like there. And then I think you've got guys in spots where they can continue to take steps forward, whether it's the younger players, whether it's a guy like Mason Lohrei, who has, I think, so much to give. A guy like Beecher with another year, Poitras if he's healthy, and even like a guy like Frederick, who I think has taken steps forward every year now. You look at Morgan Geekie, who I think limited playing time with Marchand and Coyle in that game on Tuesday, but sure looked the part, right, in terms of having a high motor, winning board battles, making kind of the small plays to complement his two line mates. There's a lot to like about where this team is at. And I agree that, like, my projection is that if they play to their capabilities, they can be a team that's in the conference final, that can be on the cusp of this and should continue to build moving forward. When you look at just where the team is, and like, I think they're in the bottom third, I think, of the league now in terms of average age. Like, they're really a lot of guys that, it's not they're all 24, 25, but they got a lot of guys that the older group are still 29 to 32. Like, it's not like it was the last couple of years. So, like, they should be in a spot to continue to build moving forward. It should be an exciting year. It's just the anticipation and seeing what this new kind of group can show out there. It is kind of waned a little bit when you just don't know exactly if you're missing that one piece that it was the reason why you went so far last year in Jeremy Swayman, and he's probably going to be the reason why you go far again. It's just unfortunate that we're in the spot where this one guy that puts this whole group together is still not here, not in net on October 8th.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that, we talk about what they did a year ago. This team is not built to have their power play be the fourth worst power play from February on. Like that, From February on last year, I think only 3 teams had a worse power play than they did. It was something like that, or they had the third worst, something. But anyway, it was bottom 4 in the league. This team is not, if they don't have the goaltending, they're not built for that. You got to score more. Where does that come from? Is that from within? Do they have to make a move externally? So they're going to have some questions that got to be answered. But I think, this is a team that they should be able to hang with. And I think that's more of a statement on the Eastern Conference more than anything else, is that, the Rangers are, in my opinion, the best team in the Eastern Conference. Once you get beyond them, it's kind of just a big bowl of uncertainty. Florida's played a lot of hockey. They are their boogeyman until proven otherwise. We all know, but a lot of hockey last 2 years. Tampa, we talked about. Toronto, Carolina, I think took a step back. Is going to take a step back this year. You look at their roster right now, and it's a little bizarre. It's kind of a hodgepodge, group of players and mixes and all that there. And so I think that could be a team that takes a step back. So in theory, the East is wide open. It's just, can the Bruins overcome their internal issues, which are the Swayman situation? And, can they find scoring, balance scoring? That's going to be the biggest question. I'm with you. I liked Morgan Geekie there. We only got 4 minutes of it though. And what can you realistically expect out of him after he had a career year a year ago? Is that the new norm for him, or was that was a flash, not a flash in the pan, but that's a 1 year, bubble. And now teams are going to key in on him more. So they have some uncertainty, but I still think they're a top 5 team in their conference. It's just, are they 5 or are they 1? And that comes back to number 1, Jeremy Swayman.
Yep. Well, we're about to find out whether it's the Swayman negotiations or where exactly this team is, and it all starts on Tuesday in Florida. Ty, I will see you there. Before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me at 985sportshub.com. You can also find me on the radio, 985 Sports Hub, the podcast I do there, Sports Hub Underground, with my friend Matt Dolph. We also, not sure when this is going live, so this might be going live after it's already happened, but we will be doing a Bruins season preview show on Saturday, October 5th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So if this comes out after that fact, go back on the website and find it and listen to it. It'll be there. So, yeah. And how about yourself?
Yes, you can read my stuff over at boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have covered every step of the way from October 8th through hopefully June, if this team is playing that far into the playoffs. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93. Ty, thank you once again for hopping on talking Bruins hockey with us. This is episode 266 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.